Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into a story of justice, prejudice, and the power of the written word. It's a tale that rocked an entire nation and exposed a scandalous military cover-up. We're talking about the Dreyfus Affair and the explosive open letter that blew it wide open, J'accuse, by Émile Zola. Our story begins in late 19th century France, a period of political tension and rising nationalism following the country's defeat in the Franco-Prussian War. The atmosphere was charged, and simmering beneath the surface was a potent strain of antisemitism. In this volatile climate, a French army captain named Alfred Dreyfus found his life turned upside down. Dreyfus was a promising officer, a graduate of the prestigious École Polytechnique, one of the few Jewish officers on the French general staff. His background, unfortunately, made him an easy target. In September 1894, a cleaning lady working as a spy at the German embassy in Paris discovered a torn-up, an unsigned letter in a wastebasket. This document, later known as the bordereau, was a memorandum detailing secret French military information that was being passed to the Germans. A traitor was in their midst. The French military intelligence launched a frantic investigation. Suspicion, fueled by a toxic mix of flimsy graphological evidence and deep-seated prejudice, quickly fell upon Captain Dreyfus. His handwriting was deemed to have a resemblance to the writing on the bordereau, and that was enough. The fact that there was no other evidence, no motive, and that his service record was impeccable was simply ignored. Dreyfus was the perfect scapegoat. In October 1894, Dreyfus was arrested for high treason. The trial that followed was a sham. It was a secret court-martial, where the judges were shown a secret file of forged documents that Dreyfus and his lawyer were never allowed to see. The verdict was a foregone conclusion. He was found guilty. The public degradation of Alfred Dreyfus was a brutal spectacle. On January 5, 1895, in the courtyard of the École Militaire in Paris, his military insignia were stripped from his uniform, and his sword was broken over a knee. As he was paraded before the crowd, he repeatedly proclaimed his innocence, shouting, "I am innocent. Long live France." But the jeering mob, whipped into a frenzy by an anti-Semitic press, screamed back, "Death to Judas! Death to the Jew!" Dreyfus was sentenced to life imprisonment in the most horrific conditions imaginable. On Devil's Island, a barren penal colony off the coast of French Guiana, it was a place where few survived for long. For the French military and government, the case was closed. But they had made a grave miscalculation. The fight for Dreyfus's exoneration was taken up by his family, particularly his devoted brother, Matthew. They worked tirelessly, gathering evidence and trying to convince influential people of his innocence. Slowly, a small group of politicians and journalists who came to be known as Dreyfusards began to question the official story. One of the key figures in this fight was Lieutenant Colonel Georges Picourt, the new head of military intelligence. In 1896, Picourt stumbled upon another piece of correspondence between the German embassy and a French army officer. This time, the officer was named Ferdinand Walsin Esterhazy, a man known for his debts and dissolute lifestyle. Picourt was shocked to find that Esterhazy's handwriting was an exact match for the writing on the original bordereau. Picourt had found the real traitor, presented his findings to his superiors, expecting them to right this terrible wrong. Instead, he was met with a wall of resistance. The army command was terrified of admitting its mistake. To do so would be to admit incompetence and corruption at the highest levels, which they believed would fatally undermine the army's prestige and national security. They ordered Picourt to drop the investigation. When he persisted, he was punished, transferred to a dangerous post in Tunisia, effectively exiled. The army's high command didn't stop there. They went on to actively forge new documents to further incriminate Dreyfus and protect Esterhazy. It was a cover-up of epic proportions. Despite the army's efforts, the truth began to leak out. Esterhazy, feeling the pressure, requested his own court-martial to clear his name. In a trial that lasted just 2 days in January 1898, he was, unsurprisingly, unanimously acquitted by a court of his military peers. The verdict was a blatant travesty of justice. The establishment was protecting its own, and it seemed that all hope was lost. This is where our hero, the celebrated novelist Émile Zola, enters the stage. Zola was one of France's most famous writers, a literary giant known for his realist novels. He'd been following the case and was increasingly convinced of Dreyfus's innocence. The acquittal of Esterhazy was the final straw. It filled him with a righteous fury. He knew he had to do something dramatic that could not be ignored. On January 13, 1898, Zola did just that. He published an open letter to the President of the French Republic, Félix Faure, on the front page of the newspaper L'Aurore. The headline, chosen by the newspaper's editor, Georges Clemenceau, was sensational and accusatory. Two simple words that would echo through history. J'accuse. I accuse. The letter was a masterpiece of rhetoric and courage. It was a 4,500-word thunderbolt that methodically laid out the entire conspiracy. Zola didn't just defend Dreyfus, he went on the attack. He directly accused high-ranking military officers by name. He accused them of orchestrating a judicial error, of acquitting a guilty man to protect themselves, and of condemning an innocent one out of prejudice. He named the generals involved in the first court-martial and the cover-up. He accused the War Office of waging an abominable press campaign to mislead the public. He accused the graphology experts of submitting deceitful and fraudulent reports. He concluded with a powerful declaration, "My duty is to speak out. I do not wish to be an accomplice. My nights would be haunted by the specter of the innocent man who is atoning, in a far-off land, in the most frightful of tortures, for a crime he did not commit." Zola knew the risks. He ended his letter by stating that he was deliberately opening himself up to libel charges. He was, in effect, daring the government to prosecute him. It was a brilliant high-stakes gamble. He knew that a public trial for libel would force the army to present its secret evidence in an open court, something they had desperately tried to avoid. He was using his own freedom to force the truth into the light. The effect was instantaneous and electrifying. The newspaper sold hundreds of thousands of copies. France was immediately split into two warring camps, the Dreyfusards, who supported Zola and the cause of justice, and the anti-Dreyfusards, who defended the honor of the army and the nation, often with violent anti-Semitic rhetoric. Riots broke out across France. It was a cultural and political civil war fought in the press, on the streets, and in the halls of power. As Zola had anticipated, he was promptly charged with libel and put on trial in February 1898. The trial was a media circus. The military establishment tried to limit the testimony to the narrow charge of libel, but Zola and his lawyer used the platform to expose the weaknesses and contradictions in the case against Dreyfus. Despite a valiant defense, the verdict was never in doubt. Zola was found guilty and sentenced to a year in prison. To avoid jail time and continue the fight, he fled into exile in England. But the seed of doubt had been planted. The cover-up began to unravel. Later that year, a key officer involved in the forgeries, Colonel Hubert Joseph Henry, confessed after being confronted with evidence. The very next day, he took his own life in his prison cell. This stunning development proved that the army had indeed manufactured evidence. The case could no longer be ignored. Dreyfus's conviction was overturned, and he was brought back from Devil's Island in 1899 for a new trial. Incredibly, despite the overwhelming evidence of his innocence, the military court, in a bizarre compromise, found him guilty again, but with extenuating circumstances, and sentenced him to 10 years. This verdict was internationally condemned. The French government, desperate to end the affair that had torn the country apart for years, offered Dreyfus a pardon, which he accepted, though it was not an admission of guilt. It wasn't until 1906, 12 long years after his initial arrest, that Alfred Dreyfus was fully and officially exonerated by France's highest court. The judgment was annulled without the need for a new trial. He was reinstated in the army, promoted to the rank of major, and awarded the Legion of Honor in the very same courtyard where he had been so cruelly degraded a decade earlier. The Dreyfus Affair stands as a monumental event in modern history. It was a battle for the soul of a nation, pitting justice against reason of state and individual rights against blind nationalism. And at its heart was Émile Zola's J'accuse, a single piece of writing that demonstrated the immense power of the press and the courage of an individual to speak truth to power, no matter the cost. It reminds us that the fight for justice often requires not just evidence, but a loud, clear, and fearless voice. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into one of history's most compelling legal dramas. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. Let me know in the comments what you think about Zola's bold move. We'll see you in the next one.